Specific physical preparation. The exercises that are suggested in this sequence truly belong to the learning circuit. Obviously, they make it possible to work on strengthening the body in ways that apply to the cartwheel, but they also make it possible to understand specifically what movements are involved. First of all, the forward kick. Here the muscles used are the rectus femoris, the sartorius, the iliopsoas, and the tensor of the fascia lata. The goal is to learn how to raise the legs while keeping the pelvis straight and on a perfectly aligned and stable body, because from this position the gymnast needs to create the instability on the axis. Let's look at some exercises, in order from easiest to hardest. First, on an inclined plane. In this position, the closing movement of the front leg is done on a brace. That means that the leg weight will help the gymnast to increase the range of motion. This kind of exercise makes it possible to work on the concept of alignment with the body lengthened on a flat surface, and it promotes active flexibility. When you have gymnasts raise the leg, the antagonist muscles, meaning on the back of the legs, namely the hamstrings and glutes, need to be flexible enough to be stretched to the desired position. At the same time, the agonist muscles, which help to lift the weight of the legs, must be strong enough to do so. The other thing to know is that the strength of a muscle, and therefore its ability to move a joint, varies depending on the angle. This ability is greatly reduced on angles where the muscles don't typically work. To simplify, to move from this position to this one, the hamstrings and glutes need to be flexible. For this, you can check their level of passive flexibility, for example when the gymnast is lying on the floor with an aid. If the flexibility level is good, the iliopsoas, rectus femoris, tensor of the fascia lata and sartorius need to be strong enough to move the joint for the entire passage of the feet. So if the level of passive flexibility is 150 degrees, for example, and in active flexibility it's only 90 degrees, there's a difference of 60 degrees, which is called reserve flexibility. This means that between 0 degrees and 90 degrees the muscles are strong enough, and between 90 degrees and 150 degrees the weight of the legs is greater than their strength level. This is because it is a range of motion that is never or rarely practiced. So this is why it's good to work on the brace. In this position, gravity helps the movement and the leg weight is reduced, so the muscles are strong enough to bring the legs as close as possible to the level of passive flexibility. By varying the angles, you can make the exercise easier as you get closer to the vertical if the head is low. The lower the feet, the harder the exercise becomes as the gymnast gets closer to standing position. So you can give the gymnast strengthening exercises that are suitable to their level. Here you can see that in this position the angle achieved is smaller than in this position. This difference is related to the lack of strength in the muscles that stimulate movement. So as the gymnast practices these movements, the strength level will increase until it reaches the desired range of motion. Now for the kick in a standing position against the wall or a block. The main focus in this exercise is to gain awareness of the alignment during the kick. When you start with the arms down, the exercise is easier. The closer they get to the ears, the harder the exercise becomes. Here I'd like you to note the position of the free leg. To ensure that the pelvis is perfectly straight and parallel to the floor, the leg needs to be rotated slightly outward. If the gymnast rotates inward, the buttocks will lift, and if she's a little over-rotated outward, the buttocks will lower. So be vigilant on this rotation, which starts from the thigh, as the leg's inward or outward rotation is located in the hip joint. Here's another way to practice this. The gymnast can hang from the uneven bars. Here the focus is twofold. On the one hand, the bars enable the shoulders to stretch, and on the other, they trigger an effort in the back leg in order to preserve the alignment despite the elevation of the front leg. This is another way to become aware of verticality. Finally, another way to practice the lift of the front leg in a muscular way. This is to have the gymnast practice within a very specific angle, mainly the weak area. Here too you can vary the arm position. Now for two scenarios on the kick, but more in relation to the hold in alignment. First on the back with two foam beams. In this position, we're stressing the posterior chain in the hold in alignment during the kick. And in this configuration, the anterior chain is stressed. All of this lets you work on an active position from the beginning of the skill, and it will show the gymnast that even a simple kick of the leg affects the proper execution of the skill. You won't need to do all these exercises. Based on your gymnast's technical and physical level, you can pick and choose the ones that will be most suitable for them. Now for 2 static exercises, targeting the planche position with the supporting leg bent. In this exercise on the wall bars, the focus is on strengthening the supporting leg and free leg by contracting the hamstrings, glutes, and sacrolumbar mass. The gymnast needs to get into a horizontal position and use the support of the hands on the bars in order to position the chest correctly. She is looking forward, the pelvis is as parallel as possible to the floor, and the foot is placed on the axis with the knee just above it. In this position with a foam block, you'll focus on the erector pili muscles of the spine and on the lifting muscle. This drill is hard to do well, and it highlights the lack of strength and flexibility needed to hold the position. You will often see body positions that are too open, with the head tucked or extended, or the shoulders closed, or the back leg rotated outward with the pelvis turned. In addition, the effort in the quadriceps will be intense and useful on a kinesthetic level. The push in the supporting leg to get into an inverted position. In this configuration, you can specifically practice the extension of the forward lunging leg while holding alignment between the shoulders, the chest, and the back leg. With this inclined foam prop, you also work the quadriceps, showing the gymnast that the rest of the leg is constantly aligned, no matter what the position of the supporting leg. Do this initially with both legs, so she feels the positioning of the shoulders, which need to remain perpendicular to the direction of the move, then with the back leg aligned with the rest of the body. Here the thighs will be working hard. The gymnast will be able to feel the function of the back leg in the placement of the pelvis, so the pelvis stays aligned. The leg must be rotated inward. Here are ways to target the sequence of movements. This exercise, for example, allows you to work on gaining awareness of the axis of rotation in the hip. The gymnast holds both the alignment and the flexion. Here's the same exercise, but with the supporting foot on an unstable surface. This enables more substantial proprioceptive work and therefore allows you to specifically strengthen the muscles around the foot and knee joints. Finally, in working with these 2 balance discs, the goal is of course to develop the deep muscles through proprioception, but it's also to understand the concept of transferring the body weight in the various phases of the skill. Now we look at exercises that are specific for the movement of rotation in quarter turn. Here the exercises must make it possible to understand the work that needs to be done in the free leg in outward rotation and in the supporting leg in abduction, the holding of the chest and the lift of the second hand. To start, here's a drill that lets you work on the coordination between the rotation of the back leg and the lifting of the arm. This is done with the leg hanging and perfectly vertical by abduction and stretching of the adductors. This scenario is very useful for understanding the function of the back leg. Now in the same vein but on the wall bars, the objective here is to continue working on the coordination of the heel in rotation with the arm lift. It also showcases the work of the supporting leg in abduction. The fixed point is the femur, and the mobile area is the pelvis. Because the movement is specific to the cartwheel, make sure that the eyes are on the hands, and the second support is rotated inward. Now for another useful exercise, this time upside down. Once again, the gymnast must repeat the back and forth while coordinating the outward rotation of the free leg with the rotation of the pelvis and chest, and with the forward lift of the arm. This drill makes the gymnast use the shoulders, particularly the one of the first supporting arm. It also brings out possible issues in flexibility in the adductors of the leg that is placed on the inclined prop. As in all the exercises, stay strict with regard to the positions in the cartwheel. Here in the first attempts, you can see that the gymnast is placing her hand incorrectly. So you need to stay with her and keep correcting. Finally, a physically challenging exercise that is nevertheless very specific to the cartwheel. At first you can spot, and then gradually let the gymnast do it herself. From this exercise, to strengthen the push of the lunging leg, you'll have the gymnast do her quarter turn. As you spot, you can make her feel the rotation of the back foot and point out possible errors in alignment. In this position, if the body is not aligned, the gymnast won't be able to hold the handstand. This is really an effective exercise for the cartwheel and round-off, but physically it will be hard for the younger gymnasts at first, so you'll need to be there. The hold in alignment with legs straddled. Just as you'll work on the hold for core muscle strengthening for a handstand, you can do this isometric exercise, but with the legs straddled on both the back and the stomach. As we saw in the technical analysis, you'll need to have the gymnast straddle her legs no more than 100 degrees in order to be able to keep the pelvis slightly tucked under. Beyond that, forward rotation and flexion are anatomically required. The goal is to feel that the position of the chest and pelvis is the same as in the handstand. Then you'll have the gymnast hold this position, but in a handstand with the back and stomach on the wall. The objective here is also to feel the position. Now we'll do exercises that target the push-off from both arms. Of course, you can revisit the exercise seen in the prerequisite sequence, along with all the walking handstands, whether forward, backward, or sideways. You can also do more specific exercises with spotting like this one. It allows you to work on the movement from one arm to the other in a position similar to that of the cartwheel. You can also do this in the same position, but adding the quarter turns at the beginning and end of the move. In these two exercises, you'll need to ensure the stability of the shoulder in the various movements on one arm. Gymnasts tend to close the shoulder sideways with a small adduction, and to compensate with an abnormal sideways displacement in the pelvis on the opposite side. So your job in this spotting will be to ensure the overall hold of the body, facilitating the transfer of the center of gravity above the support surface. Finally, to work on the step-down phase, all you need to do is all the exercises we've already seen, on both sides, because the skill is practically symmetrical. Also, this will allow you to equally strengthen the muscle groups on both the left and right. Keep in mind that because our gymnasts have a dominant side for the forward lunge, repetition will make the various muscle groups develop unequally. In some cases, this might cause or promote conditions like scoliosis. So whenever you can, as you're doing the physical preparation, work on the exercises on both sides. And you'll also notice that in many cases, this helps gymnasts better understand the move on the correct side. This concludes the sequence on physical preparation. It is truly specific and it has its place in the teaching circuit. So it's better to integrate it than to practice it separately.